Hello, my name is Doug and I've been a professional trader now for 26 years. And in today's video, I want to share with you the best psychology lessons that I have learned over the last 2 decades. Now, before we get that far, I want you to know something. This is not some watered down AI generated cheesy tip list that's been regurgitated and passed around the internet. These here are real world lessons, most that have been learned through real pain, through real losses, and by real experience. These are the same lessons that helped rescue me from 4 consecutive losing years as a trader and helped me become a consistent 7-figure-a-year earner. And today, I want to give you these tips so you don't have to learn them the hard way like I did. Now, one more thing. I do want you to understand that many parts of this video, we're going to get a little on the deep side, but it's something that must be said, especially if you want to become successful at trading. And since it needs to be said, well, you and I must say it together. So let's go ahead and get started with today's video. So now that we've got that out of the way, we can get into what I feel is the most important psychological barriers a trader will face throughout their career. Now, obviously, everything I'm going to talk about is something I had to go through personally, but it's not just me. Throughout this journey of being a trader, I've been fortunate enough to train well over 3,000 traders, and I'm not shortchanging that number by any means. In fact, I have a room right now that has over 2,000 people in it. So I know exactly what new traders and experienced traders are going through psychologically on a day-to-day basis, and I know what it takes to fix that. Now, what you're going to find out is while there are many different kind of psychological issues a trader may face, the solutions are almost exactly identical. And let's go ahead and talk about that. If somebody was going to ask me what is the number one reason a trader will fail, and I could just point to just one thing. The one thing I would point to is impatience. They're simply just rushing the process. And there are 2 groups that are affected the most by this. First is the new trader that comes into this business and are just expecting too much too soon. The second is the trader who's already been in the business for a while. They're putting in the work, they're putting in the time, and they've got this multi-million-dollar strategy in their hand, but they keep self-sabotaging it with poor behaviors. And we're going to talk about how to fix those, starting with the very first and most common group, the ones that come into this business expecting too much. Look, I get it. We live in an instant gratification world. There's no question about that. And there are no shortage of videos roaming around the internet that are just making you unrealistic promises. Like you're going to get washboard abs in 23 seconds. You're going to learn AI in 5 minutes. And you're going to be a multi-millionaire trader within 64 seconds. I get it. It's not doing you any favors. But just natural common sense should tell you that anything that is worth doing, that anything that is sustainable and worth sustaining and building a future over is going to take some time. I mean, common sense would tell you that, but you guys would be shocked to realize that so many people come to me hyped. Oh, can't wait to trade with you. I want to trade with you. And then they come in and trade with me. They have 1 loss and they're out in an hour. An hour? Like you cannot give yourself more than an hour. And here's what I mean. You're coming into an industry that is extremely competitive. You are competing against the most sophisticated minds, the most sophisticated algorithms, millions of individual retail traders like myself with who knows how much experience. And you're going to roll up off the street and you're going to start competing at a high level. Who does that? Nobody does that. And just generally in life, the only people that are poor one day and rich the next are usually lottery winners, and somehow they end up losing their money. So that's just not realistic. And it may sound again like common sense, but a lot of people just seem to fall into that trap. So let me answer something for you that you might be asking. Well, how much time should someone give? How long does it take? Now, for everybody, their learning curve is much different, but here's what I would say as a standard. If you're going to try a strategy, you're going to try an indicator, you're going to attempt to learn how to trade, bare minimum, no questions asked, you must be willing to commit at least 90 days of your life to that process. And that's just with anything. You want to go on a diet, you got to commit 90 days. You want to go to the gym, you got to give it 90 days. Your body, your mind must adapt to the habits. You must train your brain. And when it comes to trading, you've got to be around long enough to see how a strategy works with the market. You've got to see market manipulation happening live. You've got to see how markets react to support and resistance live. You've got to see how candles move live. You've got to be in a live environment for a minimum of 3 months before you even have a clue. Just get used to it. That's just the way life is. So minimum 3 months, and just be patient. It does take time. It's not complicated. It's not hard. It just takes time for you to internalize how markets work. Now, let's talk about those traders who have a strategy. They've been around for a little while, but they're self-sabotaging their opportunities, which is very common. I went through this too. Normally this happens because the qualities that you possess that you think will be very beneficial to you in trading, you're money motivated, you're hungry, you're savage, you're ready to make some things happen. Those are actually working against you because your fixation with making money, with wanting to be successful and wanting to be successful now, rushing that, right? Rushing that process. What you're doing is you're putting profits before process. Profits before process. So the rush to get those profits, the rush to be successful, you're overlooking the key qualities of that process. Now, if you have any experience at all with trading, you know sometimes the difference of waiting 5 to 10 more minutes makes all the difference in the world with an entry. It makes all the difference in the world with profits. That's what you're doing. You're putting those profits ahead of the process. It's an easy fix, but it's a little more complicated because you must break that cycle of wanting things to happen too fast, of forcing things into the market. And I know in a real live market, if you have to wait 10 more minutes for an opportunity, it feels like an eternity. Those 10 minutes in trader years, that's like a century, right? I get it. It's very, very difficult to sit there and watch candlesticks minute after minute. You can fixate on those as well. But a very simple solution, but a little more complex to get through, focus on that process. Now, what helped me do that was I started marking specific points on a chart based off of my process. Something like the box theory. I would say, I will only sell there. I will only buy there. And if that instrument never touched that line, I just didn't buy it or sell it. I just did not engage in the trade. Okay. Now, if I felt impatient or I felt like FOMO, I need to make something happen, I'm missing something, I would just step aside and come back 10 minutes later. I would step aside and come back 10 minutes later. And if I did that 3 or 4 more times, I just quit for the day. I figure, okay, you're just not going to give me the setup. I'm not going to sit here and, put myself at risk of doing something stupid. Now, remember, either part of you with this and why the impatience is very, very important is because you are independent. There isn't someone breathing down your neck, holding you accountable for your decisions. This is why psychology itself is so complicated for traders, is because you're the one that has to restrain yourself. You're the one that has to follow your rules. You're the one that has to follow your process, and you don't have someone holding you accountable. Now, next up, and you're going to like this one because it's the infamous, I cut my winners too soon and I let my losers run. Man, have we been there, right? Now, the reason this happens is because when a trade starts to work out or is in profit for an amateur trader, they become pessimistic versus a professional trader becoming optimistic. Now, it's understandable why an amateur trader would become pessimistic in a situation like this because most likely you're not getting very many gains in the first place. And again, that's understandable. Remember what I said just a minute ago? Being in the market, testing a strategy, giving it some time. So you haven't been around long enough to understand and feel and get a sense for what a real winning trade looks and feels like. And also it could be just the impulsiveness of wanting to get on the winning side, because you have lost so many times in a row. And I get it, right? You see that win and you just kind of want to break that cycle. There's an emotional factor there as well. But the difference is you feel somehow, because the lack of gains and the understanding of gains, that's going to be taken from you and you need to take it now before you don't have it again. So what is the solution to this problem? It's a redundant solution I mentioned. It is process. over profits. You yourself are also focused on the money. You want to take the money. Your process isn't been honed. You haven't spent enough time in the market. So for example, a professional trader who has a process, why they're so process oriented is because that dictates everything. Your process tells you when you should get into a trade, but it also tells you when you should get out of a trade. Now, before a professional enters a trade, they know exactly where the exit is most likely going to be. It's not, let me get in it and figure this whole thing out. So when that trade starts to work, like in my case, if I get into a trade and it starts to work for me, I've got a pretty good idea where that thing is going to go. And based off of the probability it will probably go there, my mentality is, damn, I'm going to make some good money on this one versus market's going to take the money away from me. Can you see the difference? So again, repeating myself, it is plan, process before profits. Focus on that system. Going back to the beginning, you must put the time in. You must sit there and get the screen time necessary to truly understand what a winning trade looks like. Otherwise, you're always going to be in doubt. Now, next up is fear of missing out. Why do all of us have to go through the fear of missing out? I think a lot of this is just ingrained to how we are as people. You know, we grow up and we get upset if somebody doesn't invite us to the party. We get upset if we're left out of a certain group. And I think to some degree, all of us want to feel like we belong to something. So that's kind of a natural thing we go through as human beings. But how it relates to trading, I feel, is that when we focus and fixate so much on an opportunity, or maybe you had an idea to buy the NASDAQ or short the ES, whatever it may be, and you miss this trade, you miss that opportunity, you feel, based off of your trading insecurities, that there's just not going to be another opportunity for the rest of the day. Can't tell you how many times I hear this as someone comes, I missed that NASDAQ long, I'm leaving. It's like, it was 10 minutes. The market's been open for 10 minutes. There's still 6 more hours of trading left. I mean, something else will come by. Now, the reason you feel this way, again, I can keep repeating myself. You haven't been around the market long enough. You haven't had enough screen time to see that there will, in fact, be other opportunities. This is why professional traders don't chase. This is why professional traders don't come unglued. Because if they miss something, they just wait. And why would they wait? Because their process has told them that's the right thing to do. Is this making sense now, right? It's always process over profits. And if you do that, it will also cure fear of missing out. If you wait, there will in fact be another opportunity. Now we're going to talk about revenge trading, which is probably the single greatest trader killer of all time. And I think most of you understand what this is because it is self-explanatory, but it comes in 2 forms, I think. First, it can come from FOMO that we just talked about. You have this idea, you have this great trade, and you miss it. And that's going to happen, guys. You have to accept that stuff or you can't play this game, but you miss it. And your first instinct is to try to make back those, you're counting those imaginary gains that you don't have. And your first instinct is get back in that market and find something else to make up for this imaginary loss. Now, most of the times, revenge trading comes from a loss. After you've taken a loss, you've made a mistake, normally a big loss, and your first instinct is, I want to finish green. I want to get this loss back. Again, remember what I said earlier in the intro and much of this video. I came back into trading via revenge. And I can tell you, just revenge in general is one of the worst psychological things that you can have in your brain. It is so self-destructive. But when it comes to trading, what happens is you're doing something I call trader goggles. It comes from like beer goggles, right? You go from taking an A+ setup or a setup that is really your bread and butter that fits your plan, your process, your strategy, and it doesn't work for whatever reasons, or maybe you missed a really, really good one. And then what you do is you go take another trade, but that trade is just an awful opportunity. It's literally a coin toss. You're just taking a trade for the sake of becoming green, for the sake of a win. And you can never take a trade for the sake of anything, right? It has to be defined by what? Process. You've got to have a reason. You've got to have a setup. And in those moments, the burden falls on you to control yourself, to say, I will accept the loss. If I'm breaking a long green streak, so be it. but I can't frivolously give my money to the market. And I mean, I've made tons of trades where I didn't know why I lost. That looked great. It looked great when I was taking it. It looked great. It looked great. And at the end of the day, when I go back and I review my trades, I'm like, what the hell was I looking at? I don't even know what this is. This is not even a setup. Why did I get in that? I can't even remember myself. You cannot. I mean, the simple solution here is you do not. If you want to be a successful trader, you simply cannot have lapses of judgment and things like this. There's just no room for this. You will, in fact, destroy yourself if you revenge trades. The solution, don't do it under any cost. Next, I want to talk about just long patches of losing streaks. First of all, I said in the past video, losing is going to be your friend. Even if you're a successful, high elite earning trader, you're still losing 20 to 30% of everything you touch, no matter what you do. If you were strict, by the book, following your process, only A+ setups, still 30% of these are not going to work over the long term. So you've got to just give that much error to the market. It just simply isn't going to work. So you can't take losses personally. But all throughout the year, there are many patches myself where I go cold. My strategy goes cold against the market. That's just part of doing this business. Again, I want to go back to what we said in the beginning, rushing the process. If you don't sit around the market long enough, you don't trade long enough, you don't experience everything this has to offer and what it's all about long enough, you will fall victim of not understanding that winning traders, successful $1 million traders, go through long patches of losing trades too. They go through rough patches too. The only thing different is they handle them a lot better. So you got to understand that's just simply part of the game. But here's what you do. I think I've mentioned this before in a past video. This is what helped me break the cycle. First, let's just kind of repeat ourselves. No revenge. You don't have to make those losses back now. You don't have to immediately break the cycle of losers or you're going to continue to lose for the rest of your life. You can't think that way. What you must do first and foremost is stop the bleeding. And I have a very simple rule I've been following forever. If I lose 3 trades in a row, I am done trading. I'm not like, maybe the fourth one could be the one. Oh, the fourth one looks really, I don't care if the fourth one is an A+. I ain't taking it. I am done. And one of the reasons I want to do this is I'm not seeing the market correctly. And I have days like that too. I'm a human being. No matter how long I've been here, I get tired too. I got things going on in my life. I miscalculate stuff all the time. So before it gets out of hand, this is one of the powerful things with successful traders versus amateurs. They catch on quicker. They figure out losers faster, right? They get out of stuff quicker. They stop losing faster. So for me, it's 3, I'm done. If I back that up with another losing day and I have like 2 losing days in a row, I'm not trading the third. I'm just not going to trade. Again, it's not because there isn't an opportunity. It's not because I've failed to be a great trader or I've lost my edge. It's just there's a conflict there. And it's important that you stop that as soon as possible. Now, when I come back into the market, the very first thing I do is cut the size. I'll cut it down to a quarter and I'll start trading very, very small because maybe I'm going through an emotional moment where I'm rushing the process on my own. Again, I'm a human being, right? So first and foremost, set yourself some kind of loss limit in terms of days in a row or actually trades in a row. If you lose a couple of trades in a row, there's a conflict there. You may not see it at the time and you may think you're doing the right job, but you're probably not. But you have to figure that out before you start making other trades because it doesn't seem to make any sense whatsoever if you're on a cold streak that somehow the next trade's going to rescue you from all this disaster, right? That doesn't make any sense. So do that first. I also mentioned something in one of my last videos that every trader should have is a fail safe, a GTFO number. Get the F out. That when you hit a certain number, screw the technicals, screw whatever's going on in the world, hit that button, get out, close the laptop if you're trading one, unplug the computer and get the hell out of the house, right? Just cut it off right there. You will thank me for that more than anything. Remember, as we've done all of this, the thing is process over profits. Controlling yourself is staying disciplined, and it takes time to remain disciplined. And when we're all going to just get used to we're going to go through these losing streaks, man. There's just nothing we can do about it, but we have to be able to handle them with professionalism and we have to know thyself, correct? Now, right before I sign off, I have one last tip, and this is the best tip I could give anyone. And the tip I'd like to leave you with is this: try not to be too hard on yourself. And certainly, try not to take yourself so seriously. Remember, at the end of the day, we're just pushing a few buttons and staring at red and green candles. There's so much more to life, and there's so much more going on in this world than trading. And whether you're successful or you're a failure up to this point, it doesn't validate what your self-worth is as a person. And as long as you just get up every day and you just try to be a little bit better than you were the day before, you just put one foot in front of the other. It may take you a while, but you'll eventually obtain the skills necessary to become a long-term profitable trader. You just need to stay in the game long enough. And if it gets too stressful at times, let's just keep in mind that we're all just sitting on a rock right now that's floating through space, and in a few hundred years, we'll all be long gone, and so will all of this. So have fun and be respectful and enjoy and feel privileged to be a part of this moment in time and have the opportunity to make money like this online. Now, having said that, I would also like to remind you right before I do sign off that my wife and I have created a live trading group called the Rumors Squad. Now, over the last couple of months, we've been talking about it, but right now we're almost at full capacity. This is live day-to-day trading on screen. So for anybody that's looking for the ultimate education, the ultimate way to really break through those barriers, this squad is where you need to be. And if that's something that you're interested in, is live day-to-day trading, you can go right down there in the description box, click that link, and it'll guide you to everything you need to know. So on that note, guys, it's been my pleasure. Take care, trade well, and cheers.